Hi, it's Pete back again with another film review. Um, Today I am going to be reviewing War for Planet of the Apes. It's the third part of my Apes trilogy reviews. I've already reviewed Rise of Planet of the Apes, had a look back at that, and Dawn of Planet of the Apes. Basically because of this, the third and final film of the trilogy has just come out. I've just got back from seeing it about an hour ago or so I thought I'd do this review now while it's still fresh in my mind, because this is one of those movies where you come out of it and you just don't know what to think about first. There's an awful lot to this film to unpack, and it'll probably be something that I'll be thinking about for days, maybe weeks, just sort of really unpacking it all. Even though I was really a huge fan of Dawn of Planet of the Apes, I did, from the trailers for this one, have a couple of minor things that I thought could be a bit of a problem. I mean, the trailers were really good. I still really like the trailers of this, but I was slightly concerned that it was going to be a sort of big action spectacle, which is, of course, what we wanted to see, but I was kind of worried that it would be action over substance. I mean, the other two Apes movies were very much uncharacteristically the summer blockbusters about the story and about the character, and the action was either not that much or not really the main focus. And this looked like, being called War Planet of the Apes, it was going to be more of a focus on the action. And the other thing that I was a couple of things, was Woody Harrelson's character from the trailer. Even though he looked menacing and he looked cool, he seemed sort of like a one-dimensional kind of villain who was just very mean and very cruel. And the other thing is, if you're a fan of the old Apes movies and you've watched all the old ones, it's that kind of film where you kind of know how it's going to end, or you think you know how it's going to end. So even though I was super excited for this movie, I had these few little sort of things which meant I wasn't as hyped for it as maybe I should have been. But I can honestly say, after having watched it tonight, that all of those little things I was potentially worried about, none of it came to pass. And actually, this film is far, far, far and away, in my opinion, the best of a trilogy. And that is saying a lot, because I loved Dawn of Planet of the Apes. So, yeah, I mean, it's remarkable what they've managed to do, this whole trilogy of movies, again, coming off a franchise that pretty much ran out of steam. And like I say, when Rise came out, no one really thought much about it or was really wanting it. But it's since evolved to be one of the greatest trilogies that I think we've ever seen, to be honest with you. I mean, as far as trilogies go, the third parts are often, if not disappointing, then a little less good than the first two. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Dark Knight trilogy, but I think you would probably say Rises, for most people, wasn't up to the standard of the first two. But I still think it's a good trilogy and it rounds it off well. And I think that's exactly what this does the best. The first thing to say about how good it was is just how good of an ending this was, for a trilogy and for rounding off Caesar's character. And it really gave him even more character drama in this one than in the other movies, which again is surprising because I was expecting it to be less character and more action. But the action is there, but it's not overpowering. The character drama is the main thrust of this movie, and actually, for a good portion of it, it feels more like a sort of western than a war movie, and towards the end it becomes more like a prison drama. So you have these different genres that are all working really well in this movie. It's not just one kind of a film, it's like a bit of a war movie, a bit of a western, a bit of sort of like a prison breakout thing. And it even links quite nicely into Rise. I think his character goes, sort of revisits some of these situations and some of the things from Rise. And one of the things that's most staggering about it is just how much that Caesar is put in danger. And it's always good to have a main character who you feel at this point is invincible, to be dragged right down to the bottom. Again, Dark Knight Rises, I think, did this very well. It sort of takes Batman and drags him right down. And this, without giving away spoilers, sort of has a similar thing. And it's just interesting because it gives you more respect for the character, and makes you more invested in it. One of the things about this was, even though I sort of felt like I knew what was going to happen, when I watched the film, it didn't feel like I knew anything. It was feeling like when you feel it's going one way, it was going another way. And I was constantly gripped and constantly on edge. It didn't feel like a movie that had a single wasted scene. All the scenes either developed the story or developed the character or built up something really important that was important to pay off later. There was no sort of padding and there was no sort of overly bloated, overly long action scenes that didn't need to be there. Everything in this movie just felt spot on pacing wise. It was paced beautifully. Some people said it was a little slow, but I don't, to be honest, think it is slow. I think that's just the kind of movie it is. It's not a wham bam sort of Michael Bay fast cuts action movie like a Transformers film. It's a slow, thoughtful, at times action packed, but generally it's a thoughtful, well disciplined movie that's more about the ideas and the issues and the characters and the action. And that was the biggest compliment I can pay it, is that it didn't degenerate into just a random action spectacle. It actually stuck to the original two movies' blueprint of focusing on the characters and finishing off, Caesar's journey. And when you look at it as a trilogy, it's a really good, strong trilogy. So I can't really say much more about it without going into any kind of spoilers, really. But other than it is definitely an essential watch, I think everyone should go and check it out. Whether you've seen the other two or not, I think it helps to have seen the other two, certainly. But even as a bit of film by itself, it's really, really good. I mean, a couple of things I forgot to mention, I was going to quickly mention, is the score was absolutely fantastic. It was a really, really good score for increasing the tension and making you feel like you were on edge with it. It wasn't overpowering, but it was noticeable just how good it was. And of course, the other thing that has to be said is Andy Serkis' performance as Caesar was flawless. It was absolutely incredible, the amount of emotion and the emotional range that the technology has now. Like, visually, it just looks incredible. There was no scenes where it looked like it was CG. I mean, Dawn had a couple, Rise had quite a few, but this was just never seen anything like it, for the facial capture, for the emotion that you could see in his eyes, his face. And it just worked for the movie so well. It was really, really emotionally invested. I felt more emotionally invested in this film and this character who's a CGI ape than I have for a lot of live action films. I really want you to feel the same, but it's just not that well done. With here, it's so raw and it's so powerful that you just immediately are on the side of Caesar and the apes, and it's great how it makes you want the apes to win. It makes you hate the humans and stuff. I'm always a fan when humans get wiped out in films, just because it rarely happens. So whether that does or doesn't happen, but I am a fan of that when it does happen. So I'm going close to spoilers, so I'm not going to say anything else, but that it's a 10 out of 10. It's definitely the best film in this year, and it's definitely, in my opinion, the best of a very good trilogy. Now, that might change if I rewatch it. Sometimes these things you have to rewatch and have a look at it again and judge it against the other movies. The only thing I'd say negative about it is just it's very dark. It's a very, very dark film, and not necessarily a negative, but I think it's sometimes the film felt so dark and so grim it was a little bit too strong to take. I mean, there is a little bit of humour in it, but it's very, very minimal. And then again, the humour's well played, it doesn't overtake the film. But I think to some extent, even though I think this is technically the best film, I may still go back and watch Dawn of the Planet of the Apes a little bit more than I've watched this one, just because of that. It wasn't so unremittingly grim. This is a pretty grim watch, and again, for a blockbuster movie, it pats off to it. It's very, very ballsy, but I think for some people, it may just be a bit too much, and there was a couple of bits where even I felt like I could do with a little bit of levity or a little bit of like things not being quite so horrible. Even though I like dark movies and I like stuff like that, so it's not really a criticism in a way, because it's just how they chose to make the movie. But just speaking as an honest fan, I would possibly, sitting down and choosing one of those movies to rewatch, go more towards Dawn, just because of like what I said. It's not so unremittingly grim, but at the same time as saying that as a negative, it's also a massive strength, because there's very few movies that go this far but are done on this level. You have plenty of these kind of movies that are dark, grim, depressing art house movies, but in terms of a blockbuster film franchise, it's not usually that it ever gets this dark. And so, yeah, it's something to be celebrated as well. And the only other thing is, again, it's going a little into spoilers, but you don't really perhaps get as much action as what some people would be expecting. Like, I was expecting a bit more in the action, even though the action was there is good. So that could be a potential negative, but it doesn't really strike me as a negative just because of how well done the movie is. The movie is intended to be the way it is. It's not anything that is like you could sort of criticise it for. It's more probably down to your expectation of what you thought you were going to get rather than what the film actually is trying to be. And again, the marketing has been a bit misleading. So overall, it's a 10 out of 10. I think it's really, really good, and I think it's definitely worth checking out. But like, if you can, do what I've done and watch the first two movies, because that'll just make you appreciate this one even more. I mean, really, Dawn and this one in particular, you could leave out Rise and not watch it, but it's still a good idea to see the first two because they're just good films anyway. So that's my review over and done. That's me finished with the Apes movies for now. I may at some point go and rewatch the original 8 movies because it has sort of inspired me to have another look at those and see how well it ties in, because it did feel like it tied in very well with those old movies, but just to go back and rewatch them and see like how well it does tie in will be quite interesting. So I'm going to be doing some series of overviews soon. Of course, I'm going to be pressing on the Marvel stuff that I keep talking about next. So I will see you guys very, very soon. Bye.